Hey, Chrymzon here, and we have a new piece of artwork for the Saints Row reboot. And the thing that we can pretty much write off right away is that all of these names that have been added to the wall, I think most of them are going to be people that have worked on the new Saints Row project. One of them, Danzig, appears to have a Twitter account, and he seems to be an artist, so if you want, you can go and check him out and see what you can dig up. Now, that's pretty much the one thing that we know for sure, is that some of these names might be people that worked on the project, and that's about it. The rest of this video is going to be pretty much speculation. One of the first pieces of information that some people might like is that there are a few hints that might indicate that this is taking place during the third game in the series. So if you wanted to consider the first two games in the series to be canon and then just erase everything that happens in the third game onwards, this might be your game. I personally do not buy into that, but there is some evidence for it. The big piece of evidence is that you can see a can of Saints Flow that is being handed to us through the graffiti wall, and Saints Flow first shows up in Saints Row 3. And then the other little piece of information that might indicate that is if you look at the hippie dude and the fingers that he's holding up, the three fingers, to signify that this might be the third game in the series. Now, personally, I don't think that's the case. I think that this evidence is pretty flimsy, and I'm going to go into further detail why in the rest of this video. But before moving on, I also want to kind of correct myself, because in the previous episode I said that the Snake Gang was made up of the Rollers, the Sons of Samdi, and the Morning Star. I'm now rethinking that, and I believe that it's actually made up of the Rollers, the Ronin, and the Morning Star. So one thing that I want to point out is just how different this new artwork is, because I was expecting that we would get some new yellow gang icon and that would serve as the third slot on this graffiti wall, but instead they decided to throw us a curveball, and that's not the case at all. Now, for a second, I want you to try and ignore the "you wanna be us" with the hippie dude jumping over what appears to be a crowd, and try to envision and imagine what the underlying image would be. Now, based on what we can see, to me this doesn't seem like the symbol of a gang in the slightest, which is really weird because there's clearly a saint underneath here, and at the very top of the graffiti wall you can see an S and an A and what appears to be an I. Now, another curious part about this is that the S and the A have a shade of purple in there that's very similar to the Saints color. So for the sake of argument, I'm just going to assume that whatever this artwork is that's underneath the "you wanna be us," that it's probably related to the Saints. Now, here's where things are going to go really, really crazy. I am speculating that at the very beginning of the game, that the Saints might not be a street gang. I'm actually speculating that they might be part of this group or organization that's trying to revitalize the community. Now, my thought process for this starts with the original concept for the Kings, because in the original Saints Row 1, the Kings formed because of all of the drugs that were being pushed into the neighborhoods, and they wanted to fight against Los Carnales, which were the major force that was pushing these drugs onto all of these people, and they rose up and pushed Los Carnales out. I think that the Saints might be fulfilling a similar role here, where they are pushing out these Mexican and snake gangs from their neighborhoods. Another part of this that kind of hints towards that direction is that you can see a groundhog, some sort of deer or elk, and then what I'm assuming is an American bison, but it's hard to tell because it's being cut off on the very right-hand side. And then you also see some mountains in the background. To me, I'm kind of getting the vibes of let's clean up the neighborhood, recycle all of that jazz, and you even have the groundhog that's smiling. To me, this doesn't really signify a gang that is looking to be feared by the other gangs, right? And so I'm thinking that the Saints are a part of this organization, and you can see that what might be the words for Saints has different shades of color in it rather than just purple. So if these other gangs operate like I'm expecting them to, where they're made up out of a bunch of different smaller gangs, perhaps the Saints, in a similar fashion, are a part of this organization that's made up of multiple different groups. And one of these groups might be the yellow gang, so to speak, because it does seem as if there is a shade of yellow that's making up the Saints word. Now, if all of this speculation is correct, then it would be easy to see how there's a relation between whatever the equivalent to the kings are and who the Saints would be. But how do the Sons of Samdi fit into all of this? Well, I'm thinking that if this really is a rejuvenation project for the neighborhood, and they're trying to clean it up, that one of the members of the Sons of Samdi is actually a hippie, and he's wearing a shirt that even says Save the Earth on it. So someone like him, I could see getting behind a project like this. And this is a little bit important because this particular character, Veteran Child, was an ex-boyfriend of Shondi's. This might be signaling that the events of this game take place when Veteran Child and Shondi are still seeing each other. And maybe as the game goes on, they have a difference of opinion, and whatever groups make up this Saints organization will eventually break off from each other. What I'm starting to think the whole plot of this upcoming game will be is that you're starting off with good intentions. You're trying to help the community. You're trying to restore peace and order to your neighborhood that's been overtaken by drugs and gang violence. And then what happens over the course of the game is that the Saints slowly start to be corrupted and start to adopt some of the traits from all of these different gangs. And if this is true, in a way it would tie in perfectly to what I was saying in episode 0 of this little series that I'm doing, where you can see no, no, no in yellow next to what appears to be a saint. Because the yellow gang or group that is part of this saint organization might be trying to warn the Saints that they're going down the wrong path and that they're being corrupted from what their original purpose was. And then all of this ties in together perfectly because the story arc for Julius in Saints Row 1 and Saints Row 2 is that he betrays you in Saints Row 1 and tries to get you killed because he slowly started to realize what the Saints were becoming. And so he tried to end it before they kept going down this wrong pathway where they started to deal drugs and commit gang violence among the populace. Now, if you're going to ask me, well, what do the Deckers have in all of this? Honestly, I have no idea. But one other piece of information that might be supporting this whole theory of mine is that the "You Wanna Be Us" graffiti is being sprayed all over this wall, right? It's going over what should be part of the Saints artwork. So what I'm thinking here is that the Saints are being disrespected. I'm thinking that the Saints are trying to clean up the neighborhood, but they're not seeing any progress at all. The Mexican Cyan gang and the Pink Snake gang are still running things. And no matter how hard this group tries, they're not seeing any progression. And so out of desperation, the Saints might start engaging in more criminal and violent activities so that they can see results sooner, which will ultimately lead them down the wrong path to where they end up becoming their own street gang at the end of it all. Now, once again, this is complete speculation. I might be completely wrong in my hypothesis, but based on the information that was provided to us in this artwork, that's along the lines of what I'm thinking that this game is going to be about. Now, I know that this video was a little bit weird, but I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all in the next one.